Communication pitfalls. Where do we fall short?
We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. This power couple is building stronger marriages one day at a time. Talking about real issues on love, relationships, and marriage longevity. Let's break down the barriers and engage in healthy conversation with your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie. Take a seat and buckle up because things are about to get real.
Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to our channel. Today's conversation begins by us emphasizing the critical role communication plays in the health and success of our relationships.
All right. Man, could you imagine all those relationships out there that do not have communications?
Right.
It's like trying to navigate life in the complete darkness.
Right. It's like trying to get on the highway and going down south.
Exactly. Stumbling around in the dark without any type of light or anything. Couples, if they could just grasp that communication provides the light that would illuminate their path, it would help them navigate through challenges, celebrate their successes, also share their deepest selves.
All right. So it has been shown that couples that do not have communication or effective communication in their relationships usually have those the most difficult relationships.
I would say
and
that.
then you can tell the relationships that have taken the opportunity to find out what healthy communication looks like in a relationship. Therefore, they have more healthy, happy, loving relationships. They usually last longer. So we want you to know that the valuable benefits that you can gain in a relationship from using relationship coaches like Jason and myself, we're here to give you the best possible play that you need in your relationship to make it successful.
Now, we know that effective communication is the cornerstone of a healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
We said that many a times before anyway. It fosters trust, understanding, emotional connection between partners. Effective listening, though, involves giving full attention to your partner, providing verbal and nonverbal feedback, and asking clarifying questions.
All right. So we know that we must recognize the power of both verbal and nonverbal communication clues, right? Verbal communication clues includes...
Wait a minute, but it's not, it's just not words now.
No.
So it's not just words, right?
Exactly.
But truly understand the underlying message.
Right.
When we communicate openly and honestly, we create the environment where both partners feel understood.
All right. So when we do that, when we're talking about verbal and nonverbal communication clues, we're talking about when you're doing verbal, it's your tone of voice, right? It's the words you choose. It includes the message that you're trying to deliver. Nonverbal clues include. So when we're talking about nonverbal, that was one of our nonverbal clue, right? So we just stop talking. What is my body language saying? What are my facial expressions expressing to my mate? Right? What are my gestures telling you? My words may be saying one thing, but what is the true message that I'm delivering to my message in communication when we're talking in a conversation, right? Understanding these clues enables us to communicate more effectively and to reduce the risk of being misunderstood.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
So it's important to be able to express verbally as well as non-verbally without conflict. That's the key.
That's the
right?
key.
Oftentimes we think we're communicating, but the way we are communicating is not effectively because we end up in conflict. So if you are having conversations and they end up in conflict, that means you're probably not communicating very effectively. All right.
So now that takes me back to a story, right? Kind of reminds me of the time that we used to communicate like that. Tina would come to me like talking and saying, expressing herself the way she would like to express herself. I didn't always understand that, and I didn't react to that very well, so I wouldn't probably say anything. She would get upset, right?
I guess like early in our relationship.
Right, early on. I'm like, before we learn all this, right?
Before we learn this, right? My way of communication style was always to kind of just
deal with the problem, talk about it, fix it.
My way of I want to get it out.
Right.
I want to talk. I want to express it. I want us to be able to communicate. That's what I thought we were doing, right?
Correct.
So if I bring this issue to him,
right,
and I'm expressing how I feel verbally, then what's the problem?
We should be able to resolve the problem.
We should be able to resolve the problem. He should be able to meet me at where I'm coming.
Right, and I took it as an attack. So when I feel like I'm attacked, I don't really respond well.
So you would shut down.
Yep.
I would keep talking.
You keep talking, attacking, however you want to say it.
Right?
Yeah.
And where we ended up was in conflict.
Yeah. So you wanting to talk about it to fix the issue.
Right.
And me saying I feel like I'm attacked
what you usually did what? You usually shut down. Shut down. Which was your communication style, right?
My communication, because I didn't want to, look, I don't need to elevate this, right?
That's what you were thinking.
Right.
But my thing is if we don't talk about it, then it's like the issue isn't important or you are overlooking the issue.
Right.
Which brought us to a point of more conflict.
Right. So you want to talk about it. I mean, I didn't want to have conflict in our relationship, right?
Who does?
Right. And no one does. But then we do things to create the conflict.
Right.
Right. So you want to talk about it, I didn't. So the fact that we brought up the situation caused more strife later on down the line because by the time we got done talking, or you talking, me running,
or you
not
pretending like you're listening.
Right, and not paying any attention, going like, okay, I'll be glad when she stopped talking.
Right.
It made the situation worse because as time went on, we weren't talking. So we'll go to a stretch where we're supposed to be trying to fix a problem. We're talking. Things don't go well. We go to
that conversation with more conflict.
And then we're not talking.
Right. I shut down. You shut down.
You mad. I'm mad. And we still haven't resolved anything.
And then now we're walking around.
With our lips poked out.
Exactly. Giving body language.
And I'm saying I'm not going to break first. I ain't going to say nothing to you.
And I'm thinking I'm not going to say anything because he didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
So now I'm upset. I'm giving you the cues that I'm upset thinking that it's going to make you talk. Right? It's going to make how we usually do in our relationships is if I give you the body language, if I give you the cold shoulder, then what most of us think is that is effective communication because now I'm letting you know how I feel.
Right.
And I can hold on to not talking to you, not giving you sex, not giving you the warm fuzzies, not fixing your dinner, not doing anything, right? And all the while you thinking, okay, how long is she going to do this?
Right.
How long we going to play this game?
But I'm going to go as long as you go.
Right. So we trying to play tit for tat, right?
That's right.
Okay. So that's how we understand that misunderstanding and trying to get our point across when we're not really communicating.
All right, let's check some of the comments here.
All right. So let's see our commentator.
Hello. We have Dennis saying happy Friday.
Happy Friday,
happy
Dennis.
Friday,
Thanks
Dennis.
for tuning in. All right.
All right. We have Rita S saying, hey, family.
What's going on, Rita S? Glad you could join us this evening.
All right.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us.
Right. Don't forget to like and also share.
All right.
All right. So being able to express both verbally and nonverbal without conflict.
Without conflict. That's the key.
Oh, man, it's paramount, right?
Yep.
For several reasons. Firstly, it fosters a climate of mutual understanding and respect. I mean, which that's all we want is respect.
That's right.
When partners can communicate their thoughts and feelings openly, remember I said open and honestly, it creates an environment where both individuals feel valued and heard.
Isn't that the key? Don't you want to feel valued in this relationship? And then you want to know that I heard what you're trying to say. Yes. Exactly. So conflict-free communication reduces misunderstandings and promote harmony within our relationships. And that's what we have to understand. It allows us to share our ideas, our desires, our concerns without the fear of you judging me, right?
Ooh,
We have to create that safe space. No one wants to be judged. I don't want to put down what I'm saying, or I don't want to be able to communicate what I'm saying, and then I feel like he's judging me, or he's not allowing me to share, right? But when he does, when we do this, when we are able to express our ideas, our desires, and our concerns, then it helps us to, in turn, actually create a deeper level of intimacy and a real, actual, closer emotional connection.
It does.
Right? So it helps us to connect deeper than just on the surface.
Right. That it does.
All right. So I know when we were talking about just now, right? So we would get early in our relationship, early in our marriage, or even, I would say early. It's been a little while, right? So we had to get to a point where we knew that the way we were doing things wasn't effective. So we sought out a different way.
Right.
We
were both learning, right? There was no course here. I mean, we didn't know. We didn't read a lot of books or whatever. We just got married and
thought we could figure it out. And that's what most people do.
Right.
We think that the I do, right, getting to the altar, getting married, tying the knot is the ultimate, this is where I'm going.
Exactly.
And what we don't realize is that that's just the beginning.
Right.
That's where everything starts. And now we're faced with the realization that we really don't have the tools, right, or the skills to be successful in our relationships. And then we wonder what happens.
Yeah, because it's two single individuals coming together as one.
Absolutely.
Right. So now you have to be respectful of your feelings,
right? Of
what your needs and wants, which I didn't have to do that before. I did when we were dating, but it's different, right? So it's a huge difference when you get married and you in the thick of it, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do in this situation?
Right. Or I think I'm going to continue to communicate the way I've always communicated, right? Because I didn't know that it was ineffective.
This is what I saw. This is what I learned. It worked for my parents.
Exactly. Or it's worked so far. Well, I've never had to really consider anybody else's feelings.
Or we'll just go to someone and get some advice.
Right. Or wrong advice.
It's right to them. Right.
All right. So let's check in.
From Jaylay. Hey.
Hey, Jaylee.
How are you?
Thanks for tuning in.
Yes.
All right. Glad to see you here. All right, so let's take a break, and let's announce our top leaderboard, our top fan leaderboard right now. So who is leading in our top super fan?
I don't know if we have that one. Do we have that?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
All right, so we'll come back to it when we get it. All right.
Yep.
So another thing that we want to let you guys know is not just verbal and nonverbal communication. It's also another thing that we like to tell our clients is the transparent communication, right?
Yes.
All right.
So transparent communication involves me sharing my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences openly and honestly.
That's that right there.
That's
that
key.
right there.
That right there. Okay.
Right? Because sometimes we think we're being honest, open, and we only being half honest.
That's right. Even when it may be challenging to do so. It is characterized by a willingness to be vulnerable and authentic.
What is that word?
Vulnerable?
Yeah.
Yep. And see, it makes me nervous even saying it.
I can believe it.
But
right?
I'm a man, so I can be vulnerable.
All right.
And authentic. Okay. Expressing oneself to your partner.
Right.
When we share our thoughts and feelings and experiences authentically, we build the trust.
With that tongue
Man,
tonight,
you know what? These words are big. I'm getting that download from the good Lord.
Right.
Saying this is what you need to say.
All right.
We build trust and strengthen our connection.
All right. So here's an example of what transparent communication is. If my partner asks me about a situation, we're having an issue, or he has an issue, and he comes to me and he asks me about it, I have to give him all the information pertaining to that issue.
Right.
Right? I have to be transparent on what I think, what I feel, how I took the communication or the issue. We have to go deep and personal. We have to be transparent in the way we communicate with each other. Because if I'm standing behind a wall or have put something, something between us, then it eliminates my ability to connect with my partner, right? So another way is non-transparent communication, right? When we downplay what's really going on, right? Because we don't want to seem petty, or we don't want our partner to get upset. So we don't express all of our feelings. We hold back. We hold back because we're afraid to be vulnerable.
Okay, right,
exactly. Right. We don't want to be authentic, or we don't want to tell the honest to goodness truth. So that's non-transparent. And then when the issue comes up again, then we find ourselves back at the same point, the same starting gate. And then we realize at that point that we weren't transparent.
Right.
We weren't transparent enough in helping our partner understand what's going on with us. All right. So we have to be careful with our verbal as well as our nonverbal, being transparent.
Right.
I want you to see where I'm coming from and not hide behind an illusion of what you think is going on or what I want you to think is going on,
And
which is being non-transparent.
And transparency is kind of scary, you know.
It is. It
because
can
you
be.
really have to put yourself out
It's
there.
just like being vulnerable.
Right, yeah. So you have to put yourself out there, which, like I said, if it's not received in the right manner, you can really hurt someone's feelings and emotions.
And then that goes back to us being able to create that safe space, that environment to nurture our relationship where we're not being judged, right? We're not afraid to actually open up the curtains.
Right.
Let's pull back the curtains. Let's pull back the layers. Let's go deeper to what's really the issue here going on, right? So we're crying out for love, but how are we doing it?
That's right.
And am I showing up authentically enough where you can see my vulnerability and then meet me there?
Right.
Instead of saying, well, you're overreacting, right? Where you're not actually, where most people get hurt because their feelings are not being validated.
Right. That hurts. I mean, like if I pour myself into the conversation, I'm telling you how I am, right? This is how I actually feel. And you make light of it. It's no fun, right? I know next time I'm not going to express how I really feel to you when it comes to me and my deep feelings. I'll give you some surface stuff like, yeah, I'm not happy, but whatever. But you won't get the true essence of how I really feel.
And I think that's what most people do, especially guys. They're afraid to put themselves out there because they don't want to get emotional, or be vulnerable, and then get hurt.
Right.
All right. Let's check in with to see if we have any comments.
We have Jay saying, so glad I can tune in today.
All right. That's two. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Feel free, guys. So this is a live conversation, which means that we are live to let you know what's going on and to communicate with you. This is your opportunity to communicate with us, ask questions, talk about us. If there's something that we said that you want to chime in on, by all means, type it in.
We have a question from Dennis. Is it gaslighting when not being totally honest, or is it a matter of not feeling being safe or being in a safe space?
I would say it all depends.
Uh-huh.
Right? So if you're not being honest, it would have to be, so I guess I would ask a deeper understanding.
Right.
So is it gaslighting if your partner says that
what you feel, you don't actually feel? That is more like gaslighting. You invalidating my feelings.
So
So if I tell you how I feel and you tell me that I don't feel that way,
that's gaslighting.
That's gaslighting.
Now, if I have tell you how I feel, right? And so gaslighting would be where you're telling me how I'm not feeling.
Right.
And then not being honest would be that when it's my turn to share, I'm going to give you half the story.
Ooh.
So, Dennis, I don't know if you remember when Jason was back in some episodes when Jason was expressing that there were times that we had conversations and he just didn't tell the full story.
I told the story.
You told the story.
I told the story.
But you didn't tell the full story.
I didn't tell your version of the story, but I told my version of the story the way I wanted to tell the story.
Which means that that's not gaslighting.
It is definitely not gaslighting.
That's more or less not being honest. So when we talk about, Dennis, when we talk about giving your partner a safe space to share, that means that you've done the work ahead of time, right? We've done the work ahead of time to, you can't just sit down and say, okay, we're going to be honest right now. Let's be honest. You have to create that safe space beforehand.
Right.
You have to, I know with Jason and I, we had to be able to communicate on a different level, which means that he and I both knew that the way we were doing it wasn't working. So we sought after something different, which means that we read books. We ourselves got coaching. We went to workshops and seminars on how to make your relationship better, or we got training in the area of effective communication. And then we had that aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm thinking that the way I communicate is effective.
Right.
And
Is the way to communicate.
that's exactly what I was going to say, right? My way is the right way, is
Yep.
the only way. Something's wrong with my mate,
Mhm.
right? Because that's what we think. Because we've gone our entire life without the actual training of how we need to communicate.
Right.
So when I would communicate with you, I was wondering, like, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm effectively communicating.
And I was effective communicating, going, can't you see that I don't want to talk about this? And you keep going on and on about this situation.
Exactly.
Right. Why don't you just let it go?
So what we had to do is kind of take a step back at the time when neither one of us was feeling threatened, or we weren't upset and there wasn't an issue. And then we came up with a way to communicate when there was an issue, which means we created a safe space. We were like, okay, I know we talked about last time, we talked about love talk. So we've spoke with some people, and we can have a conversation, whereas when there's an issue to come up, let's use the word what?
Let's connect.
Let's connect.
Let's connect.
Let's
It's
connect.
less abrasive. And
Right.
It's just something about the word talk when you need to talk that puts up your defenses.
That puts somebody,
Right.
particularly put them off, right? So
Right.
what we said is that let's create a buzzword, right? This is our secret buzzword to let you know that I'm having an issue or Jason's having an issue. So whenever I would come to him and say, hey, let's connect or let's have a love talk, he knew right then and there, okay, this is my opportunity to
Listen. Objectively, I'm
Right.
not listening. I'm not going to listen to answer. I'm going to listen so I can comprehend what she's saying. So now I'm trying to validate her feelings. In doing so, I can better understand where she's coming from. Because if I can't understand where she's coming from, then our communication is off.
Right. So whenever I would say the buzzword, let's have a love talk, he knew right then and there that he had to be objective. He had to listen to understand and not to be understood. So we established that prior to, right? So you're doing these little things ahead of time. So when it's time to have a conversation, you have actually done the work to create a safe space. You can't just jump into it and think that that's, okay, I'm ready, I'm going to listen, because we have to go through things. We have to actually get out of the habit of the way we used to communicate.
It's almost like setting the mood to be romantic, right? You just don't jump into it. You kind of, if you're smooth about it, you can just kind of set the mood. I was pretty good at setting the mood. So, you just set the mood, right? And you have to set the mood when you want to communicate effectively without dealing with, just dealing with, just coming at you real quick and just saying, we need to talk right now and we need to set the mood and get in this and do this and nail everything down. No, let's set the mood. Let's say, hey, I want to connect. What does that mean? Okay.
That means
I
you
need to
want
clear my mind.
That's right.
I need to put down any distractions.
Any defenses.
I just need to listen.
Yep.
It's okay. You're not attacking me, right? You're
And
just
that's
telling me some things. So we're setting the mood. You can call it a safe space. You can say whatever. It's creating the mood for open and honest communication.
Without anything of attachment to anything.
Yep.
From Dennis, thank you for explaining, because unfortunately I was raised to feel that when someone starts mumbling and get memory loss, it means the lies are going to start flowing.
Wow.
But I'm understanding safe space.
Wow. And that's why when we're talking about connecting with our partner, we have to understand what are their cues, right? What are their verbal and nonverbal cues? What does that mean? And then when we are at a very good or a high point in our relationship, that's when we create this. Hey, we know one day we're going to have an issue. We've had issues in the past. We've had conflicts that we have not resolved or were unable to resolve.
Right.
Let's talk about a way that we can establish, whereas when either one of us has an issue, we can sit down, non-judgmental, right? No defenses are up.
Right.
We're not listening to respond or defend.
Right.
What we're doing is we're just listening to understand, to have a pure conversation where I know that in this space, I'm not going to be judged. I'm not going to be, you're not going to retaliate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not going to be attacked. I'm not attacking you. We're merely just, as Jason and I say, we're taking the issue and we're putting it out there. And now let's talk about it and let's explain in a way that we both can understand, that we both are open to what's going on and we're not closed. Our hearts are not closed off.
Right.
And our minds are not closed off.
And we're not full of emotion.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So at this point, we're just listening.
Mm-hmm.
You have to create that space ahead of time so that when these conflicts come up, that person can sit and actually think about what they want to say, which means it may be some mumbling. It may be some, let me find out how I want to express this, right? But when we create a safe space, we don't have to do that because we're not afraid of what we say is going to be mistaken in the wrong way.
Yep.
From Nancy, Nan in the house. My phone is acting up, but I'm here.
Well, we appreciate it.
Hello, Nancy. All right. I'm glad that you are tuning in tonight and tell your phone, get it right. All right. Thank you. Thank you for keep working it till it worked.
That's
all
right. We appreciate you being here.
Yes. All right. So, Dennis, we have to understand when we create the safe space ahead of time, probably that mumbling and that thinking and that backtracking
will be clear.
Yeah.
You have a clear correspondence with the person because they feel like, okay,
Now
I can sing.
Now
I can write. I can
Right.
think. I can say what I need to say, and I'm not worried
I'm
about
not-
being judged.
Exactly. I'm not
Right.
trying to pick and choose which words to say because
Right.
I'm afraid that you're going to get upset.
Right.
Just like we just talked about, right? Being able to be transparent. Sometimes I just said, right, we're non-transparent because we're afraid that our partner may get upset or overreact, right? So that was some of those things that we have to pay attention to that.
So I remember a few weeks ago we talked about the speak repeat technique. It was live conversation with Jason and Tina. Yeah, it was titled "Respect and Relationships." I recommend you go back and watch or rewatch that episode. Right? I need you. You can learn stuff from it. You can absorb it.
So we're not
Start
just
applying.
talking to Dennis. We're talking to everybody.
Everybody.
Right? So
Right. This is not a dentist issue.
right. So right.
This
so
is a human being issue.
So we talked about the speak repeat technique.
Right. So go back and watch that. It was titled Respect and Relationships. So I need you to devour this episode. Learn, absorb, apply, and then practice the techniques, tackling one issue at a time.
Right.
Start small and work together to increase accuracy and fluency in this technique skill.
All right.
Okay? So, yep.
All right.
So today, because we always got something for you to take away.
That's right.
So today we will share a new technique. It's MVP, multi-verbal practice technique.
All right. So who's going to be the MVP in relationships, right?
Yeah.
So this is when partners engage in a conversation where they focus solely on their non-verbal cues to convey their feelings and their intentions, right? But what we're doing is we're focusing only on the non-verbal cues.
Non-verbal
So
cues.
partners are going to engage in a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you are going to focus solely on your own non-verbal cues. What are the verbal cues? Let's go over them again.
Okay.
Body language,
Mm-hmm.
right? Facial expressions,
Ooh.
your gestures.
Yeah.
And we're going to pay attention. The conversation that we're having and what I'm trying to express to my mate, is it in alignment with my non-verbal cues? Which means that I'm saying, I love you and I want us to work this out. I'm not saying like, yeah, I love you and I really want to work this out and I'm tired of expressing. So we have
that's
to.
two different messages.
Right. So what we're doing in this MVP technique is that I'm making sure that whatever issue that I have on my mind,
Yes.
that I'm going to express it verbally, but my nonverbal cues are going to be in alignment. So if I'm angry, then my nonverbal cues are going to be angry, right?
Right.
But that's not how we effectively communicate,
Right.
right? So we're going to go back to the speak, repeat technique, and then we're going to add this to it. We're going to come back, and I'm going to be able to express to Jason the issues that I'm having, and I'm not going to say, well, I know we've talked about this before, because sometimes we talk low, but our expressions are like,
Yeah.
well,
Oh, we can
I've had
stress
this
some words.
conversation before. Whereas opposed, I could say, well, we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
And it's time, I think that we really didn't resolve it for XYZ. Or, so we have to pay attention to the body language
Yeah.
that we're giving.
Yeah.
Right? When we're being sarcastic,
Yes.
right? In what we're doing. When our gestures are saying one thing, so in our minds, we think we're being calm, cool, and collective, and we're expressing ourselves effectively.
Right.
But really, our body language is hollering something totally different.
Yep. Your movements, your facial expressions, all that, your gestures. Yeah, that I love you, but then you go in there like, what?
We have Mia Miller. I'm in the house.
Hey,
Mimi.
Mia Miller's in the house. Hoot, hoot.
All right, we got from Dennis. Honestly, my mom explained this today and how she could never be direct and totally honest with my dad because he was violent and definitely didn't give her a safe space to speak her truth.
Oh, wow. Exactly. And, that really brings up a very good point, because we've had conversations with people in the past, right? We're always into these conversations about relationships. And we told the young man to actually go back and ask his parents,
Yes.
how did you all resolve conflict in your marriage? Because his thing was, I never saw my parents argue, right? I never saw them get upset. So therefore, I never really knew how to resolve conflict because I never saw it. I never saw it between my parents, and then I
Right.
never saw them come to a resolve.
Right.
Right? So I didn't know what to do in my relationship. So we told him, fortunately, his parents were still alive, and we told him, go back and ask.
Yep.
Go back and ask your parents, hey, mom and dad, did you, separately, hey, when you guys had arguments, what happened? What did you do? How did you resolve it? What was the issues? And it gives us a different perspective as adults
Correct.
than in the eyes of a child. Oh, my parents didn't argue. So right, like you, right?
Right. So here it is. Your parents didn't argue. You never saw them. That's what you think marriage is supposed to be. So when I get married, this is how it is.
False interpretation, yeah.
Right? This is the only thing I'm going off of now.
Absolutely.
So when I get into my marriage and we start to disagree and we start to argue, I'm thinking that my marriage is failing because we're starting to argue.
You think your marriage is failing.
Failing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think my marriage is failing
because we're arguing.
because we're arguing.
That's so funny. That's so funny. So we had a workshop and we asked the question. That was one of the myths, right? If you are arguing your relationship, I can't remember exactly what the myth. So if we're arguing, we don't have a good relationship.
Right.
Right? And it was so funny because Jason and I posed the question where our body language interpreted that it was a failing marriage. And so one woman in the audience said, well, and she just said it out loud. She was like, well, dang, I must have a bad relationship because we argue. It was hilarious. And so then I had to say, so because I said it with emphasis and because we put extra body language in it, that makes you think that we're not supposed to argue? Of course we're supposed to argue.
Yeah, respectfully.
Respectfully. We have two different points of view.
Right.
We're two different people. We come from two different backgrounds. Why would we possibly not argue?
Right. We're
Like,
not
that's
going to
just-
agree with everything. I mean, like, that just
Exactly.
doesn't make any sense at all.
But what you said, Dennis, going back and asking your mom and her expressing that was should have been very vital for you, because it gives us the insight of, well, maybe I'm not creating a safe space for me in my relationship, right?
Right.
Or how can I create a safe space? So now the issue would be, okay, with that information, what am I going to do with it?
Right.
How can I take that,
Mm-hmm.
apply it, right? Apply it with the MVP technique,
Right.
and then create a safe space in my relationship.
Right.
Which, like, there's other techniques that leads to the MVP,
Right.
that we combine. But creating the MVP means that you're giving your mate, you're being aware of what's being said,
Mm-hmm.
and how you actually feel.
Right.
So we have to pay. Sometimes it takes us, I know another skill or technique is the mirror, right?
Yeah.
Putting a mirror in front of our face and saying these things so that we can actually
See our gestures.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So sometimes I would express, I had that issue because I'm a very verbal person.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes when I get excited or upset, my voice elevates,
Yep.
right?
Your voice elevates.
My voice would elevate.
Right. And I
you-
would say, calm down.
Calm down. He would say, so what would you say, Jason?
And then in your elevated, I would say, calm down. And in your elevated voice, you would say, I am calm. That's a funny way of expressing it. But
Right, because this is the thing. At the time I was saying the incident, I was calm.
yeah.
And then when he would say calm down, it would make me upset.
So
And
it would take you,
it would take me up. I am calm. I was trying to show you
but you were calm.
that I was calm.
But the volume was the same.
It was definitely an elevated pitch.
It couldn't go much higher than where it was at.
I may have been
You might have stressed some words. I am calm. but the volume was about the same.
so I had, understanding in my mind, I'm thinking I'm communicating because communication to me meant verbally.
Right.
verbal communication means that you are not holding your tongue, you're letting it out. And what I had to realize is that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And if your partner feels like they're being attacked, or if you have put those cornerstones and those bricks in place that created that safe space, so now you can go sit in there and talk. Right?
Now, you also, just to piggyback off of what Dennis said, go back and see how that environment might have affected you.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
Because I'm sure if your mom didn't have a safe space, you didn't have a safe space either, or the kids didn't.
Right.
So you have to go back and reverse engineer and see where it might have affected you in whichever way. So continue to dig down and look into that, Dennis. So it's a lot to be said about that because we learn majority of our cues from our caregivers, right? How to act, react, and how to deal with certain situations. So if we're doing that, we find out if it wasn't a safe space for mom, it definitely wasn't a safe space for kids.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Absolutely.
So now, why do I deal with conflict this way?
Exactly.
It's because this is how I was brought up, right?
Or-
My dad said this, and then the conversation stopped.
Actually, we had a conversation last night, a couple of nights ago, and it was expressed that, why does my mate leave out in the middle of a heated conversation? Yeah. And so as we were all talking, we realized that his interpretation as a child from his father was that, okay, my parents went in the room, had this conversation. We know there was an issue. They exchanged words, and then I saw him come out and leave.
Right.
So as a child, that impressed upon his soul that impressed upon his subconscious that,
Right.
okay, well, when I get older,
That's
and
what
I'm
you
sure he
do.
didn't think about it.
You go cool off. You go
cool
blow
off.
off some steam.
To him, his father leaving meant, okay, well,
That's what men do.
That's what men do.
Right.
And as a woman, she's like, what are you doing? Why
Right.
are you leaving?
Well, why do you need time out right now? We're still talking.
Right. We're right in the middle of the conversation, and I'm trying to get it resolved, and you jump up and leave.
Right.
Right. So we have to understand how our past plays a huge role in the way we handle conflict, handle communication, handle the way we create a safe space or don't create a safe space for our mate.
Yeah, so don't take that information lightly, Dennis. I wouldn't. I mean, just take that and work with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So now you can know and you can understand why you're dealing with some of the things that you're dealing with.
Yeah. So how did I learn to communicate? How did that affect me as a child? What was my interpretation of a man and a woman in a situation where we're arguing, where we have a disagreement? So take that and go deeper.
And
right?
you know what? You can learn a lot, right? Going back and asking your parents about this, because now everything that we're looking at now, we're working at it or we're looking at it from a kid's perspective,
Right,
even if we are grown,
right.
because this is what I know.
This is what I saw.
Right.
This is what
And this is what I grew
This is
up.
what's playing in my
Right.
subconscious.
And it's the only thing I know, right?
Exactly.
So then you go and you talk to
Exactly.
your parents like, no, baby, it wasn't nothing like that.
Yep.
It was this. It
Yeah.
was this, that. Remember we used to do this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I thought you was doing this because of this. No, we're doing this because of X, Y, Z.
It's the maturity and the interpretation
exactly.
of a
But
child's,
then it helps you
child's
as
eye.
it helps you as an individual to go, wow.
and as an adult. Exactly.
Help you to go, wow, I saw it this way, but really they were just trying to protect me or whatever to deal with a situation. So it's good. You continue to work with that. And that way you'll know. You'll know. My mom shared a lot of stuff with me. My dad doesn't share that much, but that's okay. I mean, that's just communication style. Maybe that's where I get it from.
Yep. Just
So
I guess they feel
if
less.
I ask him, he go, well, everything going to be all right.
You know how I feel.
No, I don't.
Right.
If you tell me, I will probably know, but that's okay. I love him the same, but he's not going to tell me how.
It could be the way his father expressed, right?
Yeah, he didn't express much either.
Non-verbally.
Yeah. Yep.
Because that's what men were taught.
Right.
Don't share. You're weak if you share your emotions.
Right.
And if you get into an argument, to make sure that you control yourself, you just leave or you just shut down.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we learn to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So an important strategy that we often say that you want to put in conjunction with the MVP, right? What do we often do, right?
We practice putting ourselves in our partner's shoes.
And I think Dennis mentioned that last week.
Right.
Go ahead.
Understanding their perspective.
That's right.
Use I statements.
Right. Not the you statement.
You did this. You did that. You make me feel this way. You do this.
So creating a safe space does not mean that when you did this.
Right.
No.
No.
We have to make sure you're starting just with I statements.
Yeah.
Right. I feel, I need, I thought, whatever it is.
This is how I feel. This is how I thought. Express your thoughts and feelings.
Right.
Like Tina said, use phrases like I feel, I need, when encouraging open communication. So if we're going to have this connection time,
right,
then I don't need you to sit down and say, you did this and you pissed me off and da, da, da. I still can't hear all that.
Or I want to talk, right? I want to talk because when you did this, I felt like you didn't care. So what you're really doing is we think, again, going back to what we're saying,
right,
and then our outer appearance, right?
Yeah.
Our nonverbal cues that we're giving. But what we're really doing is saying, I'm upset. You're the reason why I'm upset, and I'm going to let you know. As opposed to saying, when this happened, I felt this way.
Right.
I felt like you didn't care. I felt like unloved. I felt like I was neglected. So you're giving your partner an opportunity to express how they feel, and then you give them an opportunity to put their place in to put yourself in their shoes. Absolutely. All right, so let's go back to our super fan.
Yep.
All right. Who is the super fan?
All right.
Commentator?
The top 3 super fans of November. We have coming in third, Dennis Archibald. Coming in second, we have Regina Blackney. And number 1 superfan thus far, 10 days into November, we have Angela Saez.
All right.
Congratulations.
All right. Top 3
We're just starting.
So what we want you guys to do and how you can what is it?
Participate.
I don't know. I'm ahead of C. I was going to say compete. But how you can participate in our super fan for November is you can follow us. That way we can see it. You can follow us, and then you have to share our stories, our reels, or our post. Any of our stories, reels, and posts, and then we tally up how many times you have shared our reels, our stories, and our posts. So if you are following us, you will get our stories. All you have to do is just hit the little airplane mode that lets you know to share them. If you see our posts, all you have to do is hit the airplane mode to share them. Or in Facebook, you can hit share. If you are on YouTube, you can share that too. So we go and we count and we tally up all the times that you share on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and am I missing anything?
No, that's it.
LinkedIn.
Oh, yeah, and LinkedIn. Sorry. Yep.
So anytime you share our legendary relationships information, they're our post, our reels, or our stories, we see that. You have to follow us so that we can see it. So once we see it, we tally them up each week to let you know where we're going. So I think last week it was somebody different that was in first place. So now we are constantly, was it the 10th?
It's the 10th.
All right. So
Yep.
it's the 10th. So you have 20 more days. So it is, yeah. So it's all the way to the end of November, and we will announce the winner on December the 1st. All right. So you guys have time to come in and swoop the winnings. All right. Come in and get the winning. All right. So do we have any comments?
Dennis says the commentator has a great voice.
All right.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad.
Dennis also says, I took anger management classes in 1994, and they suggested just to leave and take a walk if communication breaks down to a point of possible violence.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have to understand.
You have to remove yourself from the situation.
So, which means that, right, if I know I have anger issues, which means that I'm really not in control of my emotions, right? So we have to understand what that is telling us. We have to understand our own bodies, right? So it's deeper than just anger management. It's the psychology behind it, which means that I'm now getting to a point where I cannot control myself. So in the previous example, I don't think when the example we were given was not that when the person got to a point where it's escalating and it's out of control, it was just the point that from his interpretation as a child, whenever his parents got into an argument, he always saw his father leave. So his idea was whenever me and my mate or spouse get into an argument, so I'm just going to leave. I don't think it was necessarily at a point of violence.
Right, it wasn't aggressive or anything like that.
It was just that's what he always did because that's what he always saw. So, but in speaking on terms of what you just talked about, Dennis, definitely, if we know that we cannot control ourselves, our temper, our emotions to where it might turn violent, I think we have to be, that's a totally different area, conversation, episode, but we have to make sure that we are aware that we are, that's something that we're working through, and we have to be able to see the signs when we're not, when we're losing control. So that's totally different, a different area, but we also have to be able to make sure that we understand what the signs are, how our bodies are feeling, what emotions are stirring up, and then be able to handle that prior to it escalating to violence.
Right, yeah. You definitely want to get out of there before that happens. But again, there's other work that needs to be done to be in control of your emotions so it doesn't escalate to that.
And I hope now as an adult, Dennis, that since you had anger management classes in 1994, which was a really, really long time ago.
Right.
What we have to realize in life is that we cannot learn something once and it be effective.
Right. We still got to practice.
We have to practice. It's just like driving. Just think if we went and got driver's ed and we never drove, how effective do you think you would be in driving? Right? We do that because we learned how to drive and now we're practicing. All right. So is there any other issues, comments? Do you want to say anything else, honey?
Nope. I think that's about it. I think we covered everything.
All right. So thanks to our super fan. We want to thank you again for tuning in. Right. Thanks for tuning in to Loving Beyond the I Do podcast with Jason
and Tina Marie.
That would be me. All right. So sponsored by Legendary Relationship. Don't forget
to tune in next week.
That's right.
For continued communication series that we're going to be running for the next couple of weeks.
That's right.
Yep. So next week is going to be emotional intelligence, understanding and validating feelings.
Right. So make sure you guys understand that. Sometimes we that's another one of those words that we throw around lately, emotional intelligence. We have to fully understand what that means. And we have to bring ourselves up to have emotional intelligence so that when we get the relationship that we want, we can actually maintain it and we can spot it and we can cultivate it in a way where it turns into the relationship that we want and not the one that we don't want. All right. So we love and appreciate each and every one of you guys.
Yes, we do. Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to share and like it.
That's right. Share, like, subscribe, follow.
And we appreciate the comments. Thank you so much for participating in this.
Thank you so much for all of the comments. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Don't forget, every Friday on YouTube or legendaryrelationship.com. You can find us at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. And if you're on the West Coast, you can do the math.
Oh, you're not going to play around with that time
stuff? Not going to play around with that. All
Okay.
right. So as always, don't forget, we're
in it.
What?
We're in it.
Okay. All right. So as always,
we're in it to win it.
Have a great one.
Till next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Lovin' Beyond the I Do podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Legendary Relationship, or visit our website at legendaryrelationship.com. Till next time, remember to make every day count.